Hello, here we are talking about coaching. As always, I'm Yannick. I'm here with Siwash and Nicki. Hey.
Okay.
Hey.
Um, question is that comes up quite a lot. We have 10 minutes. We can push it to 12. Siwash says. Let's see. Sometimes the time restraint really gets us to focus, right? Sometimes shorter sessions actually get to the point much quicker. So let's see how this one goes. Maybe we do a part 2. Question is exploring the past. To what extent can and should coaches do that, right? So that scenario comes up quite a lot. Most coaches see coaching as something that works forward towards the future, future-oriented, solutions-focused, right? We want to move forward. One of the distinctions that coaches often make between coaching and therapy is that therapy is going back and exploring the past, and coaching is moving forward, exploring the future. And the now, right? And therapy has the now and the past, and coaching is the now and the future. But then often in coaching, I think it's quite important that we understand where somebody is coming from. I don't see it actually, and this is probably the main point for me. I don't see it as exploring the past. Even if somebody's talking about the past, for me, it's not going in the past, it's exploring the now to help someone understand how they are right now. And that can only be understood very often from making sense of how somebody grew up, or significant moments in their life, or how the narrative and the stories were created, the dynamics and the tendencies and the patterns, they all come from somewhere. So very often it's very helpful to understand ourselves now, and that will be the catalyst to help us going forward. Right? So I'll definitely spend a fair amount of time understanding where somebody came from, so that we can understand how they move forward in life, and that's still the focus. So for me, it's part of the journey. What do you think?
Yeah, that's probably for me as well. I think it's really. I think it can be really useful, especially from a coaching lens, looking at, for example, if we were exploring someone's story, exploring their patterns, right? If somebody's, for example, sabotaging something in the moment, maybe they're sabotaging their relationship, it could be really useful to explore past relationships. And that doesn't mean we go into therapy. It could just be exploring it through talking about it, right? The other thing, I think, so patterns, I think, is really useful. Understanding people's stories, even just something, just saying, hey, I would love to hear your story. Where did you grow up? What happened? Right? Like I can see in my own life, a lot of how I operate today is very much connected to what happened when I was 18. It's very much connected to what happened when I was 16, right? So a lot of those things I think are really, really useful. The other thing is limiting beliefs. I find it really useful to look at, hey, where did this show up? What's the first time you remember this showing up? Like this feeling of not feeling good enough, or, I'm afraid to be visible. Right? A lot of times, for example, when I do business coaching, someone doesn't want to show up in their business or in their marketing. There's usually something that happened. Something happened when they were 14, 15 in a group, and that affects how they show up in a group right now, or in public.
Or the solution-focused version of that, which is, was there ever a time where you were unafraid? Was there ever a time? When's the last time you felt as confident as you want to feel in the future? So to see what resources are already there, what can we already build on? That's exploring the past. I mean, maybe not in quite a therapeutic way, but it's a very clear forward thinking, but exploring the past in order to get there.
Yeah. I mean, I think as coaches, we shouldn't shy away or be afraid or judge like exploring the past. I think we all agree, we're all unquestionably kind of shaped by our past. I think as someone who's both experienced, quite a lot of therapy and also experienced coaching, I would still say that a coaching session in which we talk about the past, to me, looks very distinct and different than a therapy session where you're usually talking about the past. So I think, my understanding has always been like, perhaps, if we're only ever talking about the past and our conversations look more like therapy conversations, then as a coach, I would say you're out of your remit, and probably, unless you have the training, like it would seem perhaps, you'd want to have the qualifications and the confidence to hold space for people in that way. And I think for a coach that would not necessarily be obvious or appropriate based on the different training we probably have. But I think referring to the past and resolving things from the past in the way that Siawash listed quite a few really, I thought, on the point kind of things where the past comes in coaching, I think is necessary and important. So I think it's not to shy away from it, but to approach it from a coaching or through a coaching kind of lens.
Yeah, I'm just wondering at which point does it become therapy, right? And there is a time, certainly when I have this experience, that physical experience that I have, like, oh, you're either out of your depth, or this person would be much better served by working with someone whose whole process is to really strategically unpick and untangle something in the past, right? When we keep going back to that point in the past, to that experience in the past, when it keeps blocking us going forward, it's not just helping us understand how you are now and then moving on, right? It's you being drawn into this moment. It's really preventing you to move forward. Then you might, it might be more than a 10-15 minute exploration. You might return to it session after session after session, and you realize, oh, there's something there that really needs some unpicking and some analyzing and some exploring and shifting. And that's the stuff that therapy is made for, right? I don't think that at that point, for me, it's no longer coaching. And I know the lines become more blurry, and some coaches will probably still do that. For me, that's a pretty clear line. Are there other clear lines that you can think of after which you would say, oh, this is now something different?
Yeah, I've had early on in my coaching journey, I think a few clients where a lot of the majority of the time would be just taken by talking about the past. But I think for me that was different. It wasn't me exploring the past, it was just them talking about the past. And because I wasn't, probably as skilled as a coach, I wouldn't direct it back towards like, okay, what lesson can we take from this? How are we going to use this in the now? And I remember those sessions being really draining. Right? For me, it's just like, okay, we're just stuck there in the past. And I think again, it came back at that time. I don't think I was certified, right? I didn't go through a proper coaching training, so I knew the basics. But I think what was often happening, a client would come with a goal about the future, but then the whole conversation would just get stuck in the past. And I think it's the coach can, it's probably, maybe there's a bit of a distinction between the coach exploring the past versus just the client just talking only about the past and really wanting that space to just talk about the past. Maybe there could be a bit of a distinction there.
I mean, I think, I've definitely had sessions like that. I remember one of my earliest clients, and we kind of got stuck, and I found it really difficult because I could kind of tell it wasn't in the right... Like, it didn't feel like a coaching conversation anymore. It felt more like a conversation I recognized from therapy. But I think what if I could go back and do differently, I think what really helps is to be able to have that sensitivity and pick up on it, and then to find a way to kind of bring it in to the space and name it to the client, and, maybe ask a question like, I'm getting a feeling like this is now starting to resemble more like a therapy conversation. Is that something you've ever explored in the past? Have you ever had therapy? I don't know, like making the client aware that now we're going into different territory, and kind of keeping that a good and a thing to keep open, but maybe making it clear that this space, is ultimately referring to the past, but using it to be more present and future focused ultimately. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the big keys of good coaching, is to invite the client to notice now, right? So we can invite the client back to the present or the future. As we are finding ourselves in an exploration of the past, we can always make that connection. It's like, what are you noticing about this now, right? How, if at all, does your relationship with that experience shift? Or where in this exploration can you find resources that are gonna help you move forward? If we think back to what we agreed we're going to work on, or if we keep in mind where we're heading with this, in what ways can an awareness that just came out about you back then help you to move towards the kind of person that you want to be, right? What are you noticing now? The kind of Gestalt question. Just bring it back, and I think it's a very elegant way to make connections between what we're talking about from back then to where we're heading.
And you know what I'm just thinking, because we just recorded a session about the AI and kind of witnessing the conversations, like how would AI maybe, respond in those sessions, or like analyze those sessions, and at what point would it kind of witness or see those distinctions and like flag them up? I don't know.
Well, it can't witness, but it certainly won't hold space.
Well, no, yeah.
Yeah. What might be useful, I think, for us as coaches is to probably have a set of questions. Again, not to get too robotic, right? But to have a set of questions that could be useful connecting to the past. Where did this come from? What lessons can you take from this? Just to shift the conversation back. And I think over time you can probably, find more and more of these useful questions. But I think, one is the practice. And this can maybe also be useful in the contracting part, where you explain a little bit of the difference. But too often we hear that, right? That coaching is about the future and, therapy is about the past. I think that's I think very generic, and there's not necessarily a clear distinction around, because exploring the past again can be really useful based on what we talked about today, but then the coach probably need to have some tools and techniques to get the conversation back and to connect things back to where the now and the future.
And it starts from the very beginning. Some coaches start with, who are you? Tell me your story, right? And some coaches start with, so why are you here? Where's this going? What do you want to create? And that's a very different way of inviting someone into a space, right? One that is already inviting you to make sense, to bring your past self with you as you present yourself. And the other one is like not disregarding it, but setting a clear focus on moving forward. And styles are different, right? I don't think there's a better or worse. But I'm aware of time. We're going to have to leave this here. Thank you so much. And I'm curious about the bandwidth of what's out there. So as always, if any of this resonates, do make it swing, talk to a colleague, tell us, send us a question, share some of your experiences. The more we talk to each other, the more we learn. And the better coaches we are, the more value our clients get, the better place the world is. All right, that was us talking about coaching. Thank you so much for spending this time with us. I appreciate your commitment to being the best coach you can be. I always say, if any of this resonates, make it swing. We grow through conversations. So if you found value in this episode, please go on and share it, or with another coaching colleague of yours or a friend. Anything that we can do to help people get inspired to reflect more on their coaching and be better coaches. I really believe in the generative impact that coaching has. So if you wanted to support the coaching and this mission, then what you can do is share this, right? Talk to somebody, send a link to someone, have that conversation with someone. What would really help us is to leave a positive review or a rating on one of the podcasting platforms. Generally, the more people we reach, the more time and effort we can put into creating these episodes for you. And higher quality means also more conversations, maybe inviting high-profile guests into the conversation. That'd be a dream of ours. So you can make this worth it. And I appreciate you being with us, and I appreciate you considering to help. So thank you. See you soon. Send us a question.